The man I lifted to the top of the army with my own hard work and sacrifices became the deepest wound of my entire life. My name is Samuel Cooper. For 15 years, I believed that loyalty was a debt paid in blood and brotherhood. I believed that if you found a man in the dirt and pulled him up, he would stand by your side when the world tried to tear you down. I was wrong. I learned the hard way that some people don't want to stand beside you. They want to stand on top of you, especially after you've already given them the ladder. It all started in a small, dusty town where the only way out was a bus ticket or a uniform. I met Nicholas Evans when we were just kids. He was the brilliant one, the one with the quick wit but no direction. He came from a broken home, a place where hope went to die. I, on the other hand, had a father who was a colonel and a legacy to uphold. When I signed my papers to join the military, Nicholas was drifting toward a life of petty crime and regret. I couldn't watch that happen. I dragged him to the recruitment office. I told him, "Nick, this is our chance. We go in together, we come out legends." I remember the first day of basic training. The heat was suffocating, the drill sergeants were relentless, and Nicholas looked like he was ready to snap. He wasn't built for the grit, he was soft. But I stayed up with him every night. I polished his boots when his hands were too cramped to move. I carried his pack during the 12-mile rucks when his knees started to give out. I shared my rations, my sleep, and my strength. I did it because that's what brothers do. As the years passed, we rose through the ranks. I was the grunt, the one who excelled in the field, the one who earned every stripe through sweat and scars. Nicholas, however, had a gift for politics. He knew how to talk to the brass. But he lacked the tactical record to get the promotions he craved. So, I made sure he got it. When we were deployed, I credited him with strategies that were mine. I pushed his name into every commendation report I wrote. I wanted my best friend to be an officer. I wanted us to lead together. By the time we hit our 30s, I was a decorated major, and thanks to my constant backing and the miracles I'd performed on his behalf, Nicholas Evans was commissioned as a captain, moving fast toward major himself. My life felt perfect. I had a beautiful wife, Zoe King, and a 7-year-old son who looked at me like I was a hero. I had a home that felt like a sanctuary from the chaos of war. And I had Nicholas, the man I considered my brother, as my right hand. I remember a specific night, sitting on the porch of my home, sharing a drink with him. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and gold. Nicholas looked at my house, at my wife laughing in the kitchen, and then back at me. He said, "Sam, you have everything. Sometimes I wonder how one man gets so lucky." I laughed it off. I told him it wasn't luck, it was work. I told him that as long as I had my family and my honor, I was the richest man alive. I didn't notice the way his eyes lingered on Zoe King. I didn't notice the way his smile didn't reach his eyes when I mentioned my upcoming recommendation for a prestigious command position, a position he secretly wanted for himself. "You deserve it all, Sam," he said that night. His voice was smooth, like silk over a blade. Every bit of it. I didn't know that within 6 months, that same voice would be the one to testify against me. I didn't know that the man I had fed, clothed, and promoted was already weaving a web of lies that would turn my sanctuary into a prison. I thought I was building a legacy. In reality, I was just sharpening the knife that Nicholas Evans was about to bury in my back. MID, conflict and betrayal. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It was a slow, agonizing erosion. It started with whispers in the barracks, rumors about mismanaged funds in my unit. At first I laughed it off. My record was spotless. My honor was my armor. But then, the investigations became official. Documents I had signed, or thought I had signed, began to surface. They showed unauthorized shipments of equipment, signatures that looked exactly like mine, and paper trails leading directly to my personal accounts. I was confused. I was shattered. I turned to the one person I trusted more than anyone. I went to Nicholas. I sat in his office, my head in my hands, and I told him, "Nick, someone is setting me up. They're trying to destroy my name." He walked over, put a hand on my shoulder, and looked me in the eye with a face full of fabricated sympathy. "Don't worry, Sam. I'm handling the internal audit. I won't let them hurt you. You're my brother." That was the last time I felt safe. A week later, I was summoned to a hearing. I expected Nicholas to stand there as my character witness. Instead, he stood there as the lead investigator's primary source. With a cold, clinical voice, he presented evidence that I had been using military resources to fund a private business venture. He didn't just stop at the money. He looked at the board and said, "It pains me to say this, but Major Cooper has been struggling with the pressures of command. He's been erratic." I tried to cover for him out of loyalty, but the integrity of the Army comes first. The room went cold. I looked at him, searching for a glimmer of the friend I knew, but all I saw was a stranger wearing a mask of gold braid and lies. My honor was stripped away in an afternoon. I was dishonorably discharged, my pension gone, my reputation dragged through the mud of every military publication in the country. But the betrayal didn't stop at the gates of the base. When I returned home, broken and humiliated, I expected to find comfort in Zoe King's arms. But the house was quiet. Too quiet. I found a note on the dining table. It wasn't a note of support. It was a divorce filing. I found out later that while I was being interrogated at the base, Nicholas was at my house. He had convinced Zoe King that I was not only a criminal but that I had been unfaithful during my deployments. He showed her forged photos, fabricated messages. He played the supportive friend, who was finally forced to tell her the truth about the monster she was married to. He didn't just want my job, he wanted my life. He wanted the house, the son, and the woman. Within months, I was living in a cramped, one-bedroom apartment in a part of town where the streetlights didn't work. I had no job, no family, and no future. I would see photos online, Nicholas at charity events, Nicholas being promoted to the command position that was supposed to be mine, and eventually, Nicholas with his arm around Zoe King and my son. I spent nights sitting in the dark, the silence screaming at me. The pain was so intense it felt physical, like a heavy weight pressing on my chest, making it impossible to breathe. I had been destroyed by the very person I had created. I had given him the tools, the status, and the trust, and he had used them to lobotomize my existence. I contemplated ending it all. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. But then, one evening, I looked at an old photo of my father in his uniform. He used to tell me, "Sam, a soldier isn't defined by how he charges into battle, but by how he survives the ambush." That's when the fire started to burn again. Not the hot, reckless fire of anger, but the cold, calculating fire of a strategist. Nicholas Evans thought he had won because he played the game of politics better than me. But he forgot one thing. I was the one who taught him how to think like a soldier. He knew how to manipulate people, but I knew how to dismantle an enemy. I realized that Nicholas had one major weakness, his ego. He was so convinced of his own brilliance that he became sloppy. He thought I was a broken man, a dog kicked into the gutter who would never bark again. He stopped looking behind him. And that was his first mistake. I began to dig. I didn't have the resources of the army anymore, but I had time, and I had the truth. I started tracking the mismanaged funds that had been used to frame me. I realized that Nicholas hadn't just moved the money to make me look guilty. He had kept a significant portion of it for himself to fund the lavish lifestyle he felt he deserved. He was living high on stolen bread, and I was going to make sure he choked on every last crumb. The revenge I planned wasn't a sudden explosion, it was a slow-acting poison. I spent a year working as a low-level security consultant, using every cent I earned to hire private investigators who specialized in forensic accounting. I needed more than just a he said, she said. I needed the ironclad truth. I discovered that Nicholas was involved in a kickback scheme with a private defense contractor. He was trading sensitive logistical data for consultation fees, paid into an offshore account in the Caymans. He thought he was untouchable. He was preparing for his next promotion to colonel, a ceremony that was to be the crowning jewel of his stolen career. I didn't go to the police. I didn't go to the local news. I waited for the day of his promotion ceremony. The base was decorated in red, white, and blue. High-ranking officials, local politicians, and Zoe King, looking beautiful and tragic, were all in attendance. Nicholas stood on the stage, his chest puffed out, medals gleaming under the sun. He started his speech about integrity and sacrifice. Just as he reached the climax of his speech, the large monitors behind him, intended to show a montage of his career, flickered. Instead of photos of his service, a series of documents appeared. Bank statements, emails, logistical logs showing the sale of military assets. And most importantly, a recorded conversation I had managed to get from a disgruntled assistant he had mistreated. In the recording, Nicholas's voice was clear, laughing about how easy it was to discard Samuel Cooper to get to the top. The silence that fell over the crowd was deafening. Nicholas turned around, his face draining of color, turning a ghostly, sickly white. He looked into the crowd and saw me. I was standing at the very back, wearing my old suit, my back straight, my eyes locked onto his. I didn't yell. I didn't cheer. I just watched as the world he had stolen began to crumble around him. Military police stepped onto the stage before he could even finish his sentence. They didn't just take his medals, they took his freedom. The golden boy of the regiment was led away in handcuffs in front of everyone he had lied to. In the aftermath, the investigation into my case was reopened. With the new evidence, my name was cleared. My dishonorable discharge was overturned, and my rank was restored, though I chose to retire immediately. I didn't want the uniform anymore. I wanted my soul back. Zoe King came to see me a few weeks later. She tried to apologize, her eyes filled with tears and the realization of how deeply she had been played. I looked at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel the burning need for her to come back. I just felt nothing. The bridge had been burned so thoroughly that there wasn't even ash left to walk on. "I'm sorry, Sam," she whispered. "I should have known." "Yes," I said quietly. "You should have. But now we both know who everyone really is." I won back my honor. I won back my son's respect. But I didn't get back the years I lost, or the friendship I thought was sacred. I learned that the greatest revenge isn't just seeing your enemy fall, it's outliving the pain they caused you and becoming someone they can no longer reach. Nicholas Evans is now serving a 20-year sentence in a military prison. He went from the top of the mountain to the bottom of a cell. And as for me? I live a quiet life now. I realize that you can't force loyalty, and you can't fix a hollow man. I helped him rise because I had a good heart, and he destroyed me because he had a dark one. In the end, life has a way of balancing the scales. You might be able to steal someone's life for a moment, but you can never truly own a glory that was never yours to begin with. I am Samuel Cooper. I was broken, I was betrayed, but I am no longer a victim. I am at peace. And that is the one thing Nicholas Evans will never be able to steal.